Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, we have got lots to go over today. Liberals lost a seat already. Danielle Smith being questioned hardcore like normal. Now the media is realizing how serious and significant this whole secession thing is. A little bit more about the native letter that was written. We're going to deal with that off of Danielle Smith, and I'm just going to kind of debunk the reality of that just right off the hop. And we got lots more to get into. Let's just start right off with the Liberals losing a seat already. Now, no, it's nothing majorly serious. It's just a count. But the count did make them lose a seat. Liberals lose Quebec riding according to the revised election results. The suspense is not over in the riding of Terrebonne, as there will automatically be a judicial recount in the coming days. So yes, don't get your hopes up yet, but keep your fingers crossed. Every seat we can take from these fascists, we should celebrate. Moving along. CBC doing what it does best with the help of Fife, this loser. This guy should, after you hear this, you'll see what I mean. This guy should be skated and banned. But I want people to understand that, obviously, if you're a subscriber, you already know that this is propaganda media. They did their job very, very well. Now, not as well as in Germany, which I'm gonna show you what if the media and the Liberals wouldn't have succeeded in winning, what the next step would be. And I guarantee you, they've already thought about it. They've been trying it for a long time. It's fear, hate, and division. But listen to the crap coming out of Fife's mouth. Disgusting.
You have MPs that have told me that they found it really difficult going door to door because a lot of people were saying, we like some of the policies you're doing, but we think your leader's a dick. And we, really?
All right.
And we did.
It's funny. I'd like to know how many houses out west, Northern Ontario, that they said the exact same thing about every single Liberal and more. But they don't talk that way about the Liberals. They only do this to Conservatives. And this is why a lot of people are like, oh no, they're evil. Because politicians have been allowed to, with the help of these idiots, look at these idiots, to spread this type of lies, fear, hate, division, propaganda.
And we think he is, I'm sorry, but that's what they're telling me.
All right. I'm going to have some ombudsman's paperwork to fill out before I go home tonight, I think. But yes, not in such language, but I have heard similar sentiments expressed.
Sure he has. And they haven't heard anything like that about the Liberals. Obviously, they don't live in reality. Moving right along. Then this drops. They're looking to seek more oversight on the CBC. CBC News, for the second time in 6 weeks, faces demands that it submit it to the same independent scrutiny as all other television and radio stations. It is the only broadcaster in Canada permitted to deal with audience complaints in-house. It misrepresented facts, laundered disinformation from Hamas-controlled sources, and contributed to the normalization of anti-Semitic narratives. Now, there are a whole bunch of organizations that got together and they just wrote Carney a letter. And it's not a nice letter. And it pretty much states, we've seen this. Our grandparents and great-grandparents fled from this. They want protection, and they start naming off all of the different temples, schools, daycares, and businesses that have been firebombed, shot at. The abuse is happening outside right now when they're literally doing funerals for certain people from bodies that they've got back from Hamas. And there's protesters outside screaming genocide. Canada has fallen. Unbelievable how it's fallen. And now this is the comparison. This is the next step to try and crush the Conservatives. And for those of you who don't know, Senator Plett had his final speech in the Senate. And because Parliament's closed, he had to just do an invite. His speech was moving. There's only 6 Conservatives left. Now there's 5. In another year, there'll be 4. That gives over 96% of the Senate in Liberal power. It's going to take 30 or more years to level it back out. There are very, very, very few in that Senate that speak for Canada, let alone for Western Canada. Don Plett is going to be missed. I enjoyed watching him. Yes, I'm a nerd. I watch Parliament. I watch the Senate. I always have it playing. I always have since I was a young man. Hell, since I was a kid, a teenager. He's going to be missed. He's going to be missed dearly. I think he served 16 years. Sad. But anyways, getting on to this. This is where the media, this would have been the next step for the media if Pierre would have won. I guarantee it. I've already heard the whispers and everything. This is where it was going.
Bringing you a little bit of breaking news coming into us from Germany. The Reuters news agency is reporting that the country's domestic intelligence agency has classified the Alternative for Germany party as an extremist entity that threatens democracy, a move that enables it to better monitor the party, which came second, of course, in February's federal election. Now, they go on to say that certain factions of the AFD, such as its youth wing, have already been classified as extremist, but the party at large was also classified as a suspected extremist case in 2021. But now the Domestic Intelligence Agency in Germany is classifying the AFD as an extremist entity that threatens democracy.
They were already ramping up this rhetoric before Justin quit, was forced to resign. And then when Carney got in and the polls started coming up, they eased off a little bit. But as the lines got tighter, the media started spreading more and more fear, hate, and division, and outright blatant lies. You watch my previous episodes, I just love busting mainstream. It's so easy to bust. So easy to bust. It just sucks that I have to have it playing 24 hours a day. Drives everybody in my house nuts. The AFD party is the most popular party in the country because Germans are done watching the same political soap opera on repeat. I'll put this on full screen so you can read it all. Where am I here? The CDU flip-flops, the Greens tank the economy, and the SPD fades into irrelevance. Now, does that sound familiar? Just replace that with a few of our party names. And the FDP might as well not exist. Meanwhile, AFD's out there saying the quiet parts out loud. Secure the borders, stop the EU power grab, and maybe put Germans first for once. It's not a protest vote anymore. It's a middle finger to the system that's out of gas and out of touch. It's the exact same thing that regular Canadian citizens are seeing, feeling, and living. And we were ready to actually start correcting the past until mainstream media started pushing Trump. There are people out there that think the inflation they're paying today is all because of Trump. The housing costs is all because of Trump. They just completely forgot the whole last 10 years. Well, it's easy to forget because nothing happened except for the destruction of our nation. But they actually convinced their viewing audience that this is all Trump's fault. Think about it. They elected the entire same party back in that put us where we are today. But I saw this rhetoric building all the way up and then dwindle off once they saw the polls that the Liberals are coming back. Oh yeah, and then the second they started to tighten, right back into full hate mode. This is media. This is propaganda media. The AFD's surging. And this gives them permission to tap their phones, to follow them around. This is highly, highly undemocratic and actually illegal. But when you crush all the other parties, that's a lot of enemies. Kind of like what Poilievre did. Especially letting it be known he was going to defund state media. That was his demise. Telling the truth. So, David Eby, he pitches an inquiry into the Vancouver car attack that killed 11. Now, if you are a new viewer, I urge you, check my previous episode on the Vancouver driver. The causes of it. I break it right down. And I've had so many people compliment me on that. I'm sure it'll, like I said on the video, you're gonna lean back in your chair and your heart's gonna hurt. But it's the gospel. It's just the gospel truth. It is what it is. Now David Eby knows what the problems are there. The Vancouver mayor knows what the problems are there. All the politicians, all the police, everybody knows what the problems are there. Some of them can't talk because of an oath, and the other ones use political gain so they don't embarrass their own parties because they're an affiliate. Eby is using this as a tactic. This is strictly to try and garner him attention so it looks like he's standing up for Vancouver and BC. When in effect, in truth, in reality, all he would have to have done was say, the Liberal government has to go. It's their policies that are doing this, and it is. Instead, this is what they do. And in the meantime, you have got this happening. This is so bad. In Vancouver. Crosstown Elementary in Vancouver. See the needles on the grass? Druggies sleeping in the bench, in the swings. And they just tolerate it. The parents are so used to it, they just tolerate it. This is the Liberal NDP province of BC. They were the ones who wanted this. The Liberals just loved it because then it gave them excuse to do it Canada-wide. This is disgusting. Eby, what a useless piece of crap. Now, this is... I'm going to play a little wee bit of this. This is off of Rebel. This is absolutely priceless. It is... This is Albertans speaking out after the election.
Victory for the Liberals is going to be the catalyst for separation for Alberta.
And I wish the bloc would go away. They shouldn't be allowed in the national parliament.
Alberta kind of got f***ed over.
People have the shortest memory in this country. So 3 months of Trump meant we forgot about 9 years of what we went through. Like, what did the Liberals do to deserve another chance?
I think Canadians are f***ing stupid, straight out. Economically illiterate morons who cannot make a judgment call. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
Loading up his district with, over 100 names or something like that, that's just dirty, rotten pool.
It's like anything else, doesn't matter who you vote for. You know, there's more people in Quebec and Ontario, so it doesn't matter what we say out here, but it does.
It's like being in an abusive relationship, if you will.
Where will they go?
I urge you to watch the whole thing. Like, I'm one of the few independents out there, in fact, few media at all. I put all the links down below. So you can go through, you can check my work, you can see that I'm not clipping, editing, making people say things that they didn't say, You can watch the whole things. I urge you. This is Rebel News. I really support this organization. These guys are fabulous. I urge you, like, share, and subscribe them as well. They do great reporting, and this whole, it's like 15 minutes long. It's fabulous. You want to see how PO'd Alberta is? And guess what? Saskatchewan is even worse. They've had enough. Mo is getting destroyed. He can't even post anything, let alone walk down the street without getting yelled and screamed at. The West is tired of it. And my social media, holy, like the TikTok especially. So I'm in the future going to start putting some houses for sale and job ads. I'm going to search what I can through Saskatchewan and Alberta, and I'm just going to try and post up some of the smaller magazines and stuff around, and that way every few episodes I'll have a brand new magazine to a different area, and depending on what your forte is, what your trades is, I can tell you straight out, you won't find a cheaper place to live than in Saskatchewan. For the amount of money you make and the cost of living out here, you will get much further ahead than in any other province. And Alberta is right behind them. They're not that far. Alberta's got an advantage because they actually have a little bit of a lower tax. But with the Saskatchewan housing being a little wee bit cheaper and a lot of the food products being a little wee bit cheaper, it actually works out. The Saskatchewan works out to be the most affordable place to live in Canada. It's been that way for a long time. And they're all great people. They're just great people. Trust me, you will love it out there. Absolutely love it out there. Anyways, moving on. Danielle Smith. Now, the media, after pushing this aside and saying it wasn't a big deal, now that Carney's elected, now they're ramping up. And they're doing it because literally this is scaring the shit out of the government right now. And two tribes, two nations got together and wrote a nasty letter. Now, I'm going to debunk that letter in a minute. First, I want you to hear a little bit of this presser with Danielle Smith.
Hi, this question for the Premier, Julia Wong, CBC National. There was a letter sent to yourself and one also sent to the Prime Minister from the Chief of Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation and the Chief of the Mikisew Cree First Nation. They say that you're attempting to manufacture a national unity crisis by enabling a referendum on separatism. My question to you is, what will your government do to ensure any referendums respect and do not breach Treaties 6, 7, and 8?
Well, first let me say that we respect all of the treaty rights that are enshrined in the Constitution under Section 35. And the Citizen Initiative Act is not new legislation, and it was never designed to, nor does it breach treaty agreements. The Citizen Initiative Act, I think, is the purest form of democracy we have, and it gives all Albertans an opportunity to play a direct role in the democratic process by inviting them to have a direct say on issues their fellow citizens want to put to the people. Any Albertan can put an idea forward on any topic, and if they're able to get the number of signatures, then it would go to a vote, and that includes a vote of members of First Nations, and we encourage Indigenous peoples to participate in the process.
My follow-up is, and I know that you said that you want a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, and I see that you're saying that this would be the purest form of democracy, but you've also lowered the threshold for any referendum to happen, which we know will very much probably include a referendum on Alberta separatism. Are you risking the province's relationship with Indigenous people to appease a vocal minority who want to separate from Canada?
The changes that are proposed in the Elections Act, I had put in the minister's mandate letter when I first signed off on it in 2023. And it was in looking at the way in which propositions are put forward around the world, in particular California, which seems to have the most successful opportunity for citizens to engage in the process. They have anywhere from 5 to 10 propositions every year, but their measures are actually quite a bit lower than ours. It's 5% for a statutory change based on the previous level of vote for the governor, and 8% for constitutional changes. So actually ours is still higher than what we see in other jurisdictions. It needs to be high, but it also needs to be achievable, and that's what we're trying to achieve with this balance.
Sorry, I just feel like I'm not getting an answer, though, on whether, well, this could be a risk in terms of the province's relationships with Indigenous people.
Well, I'm not going to prejudge what citizens are going to do for a petition. Once there's a petition on the table and there's an active discussion from citizens having achieved the requisite number of signatures, I'd be happy to answer your question. Right now, this is just enabling legislation so that any citizen is able to go out, garner signatures, and if they're successful, then I guess you can ask me to comment on what is actually on the table. You're putting forward a hypothetical that doesn't exist.
Thank you. We'll go to Shane.
Yeah, just further to that, asking you to speak directly to those First Nations leaders. There's some strong.
So they keep this. They're pushing this First Nation thing now because what happened is this is the NDP Liberal Indigenous. They've been fighting so long on the wrong side. They have no idea what's really going on other Indigenous nations, and that is completely obvious. These chiefs are on crack or something. Now, let's just debunk this right off the hop. So first of all, they're losing it because they lowered the threshold, and now it's all about secession. It's all about independence. Okay. You guys caused it because you guys lied. Mainstream lied to the people. Blatantly favored the Liberals. Obviously, because they should have been in power. They should have been out of power the second year Trudeau was in with the worst corruption scandals in Canadian history. In fact, the Jody Wilson-Raybould episode, the entire government should have fallen. He broke the highest law of the land. He purposely interfered politically in the highest law to protect his party, his supporters, and a business. And in the meantime, what happened? Yeah, our first Indigenous. You can't. What an insult. This media, the fact they're even bringing this up is despicable. So anyways, they're losing it. And the lefties online are like, oh, they can't lower it. Oh, it's all about separation. Well, geez, we should use this and we should oust her. Duh. That's why she put it in, is so that people have a voice. You can't expect in a short period of time to canvass. Are you aware of how hard it is to canvass a petition? The old law, it was impossible to do. At least this way, it's still hard to do. Very hard to do. Not for independence, it's not. So, out east, suck it up, because you guys got about 4 years, maybe 5 years. And then that's it. You're not getting any more money. But anyways, they think now they're going to turn it around and they're going to get a referendum, and they're going to have a referendum to vote her out. Okay. Let's just debunk this right now. UCP fundraising soars in 2025, outpacing NDP amid budget corrupt care challenges. Now, of course, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Western Standard's pretty good. They say it straight out as it is. Good outlet. The whole Alberta Services scandal are a few NDPers, Liberals, the bad union people, who refuse to admit that the changes that are going about are going to make Alberta, they already are superior across Canada for healthcare. Nobody's going to be able to touch the quality of care that Alberta is going to have when they set all these policies in. And everybody always says, the lefties, well, you got to do it like the socialist Sweden and Norway. Guess what? Read. They are doing it like they are. They got rid of their socialist healthcare system. They still have it. But you bring in private healthcare. That way, the wealthy who can pay for it get a chance to go and pay for it. But they have to free up space first for the most emergency needed care. That frees up so much room. Now the rich still gets treated like everybody else, but once the emergency levels are brought down and they're caught up in the cancer, especially the breast cancer stuff, there's been so many women who have not only perished, but forced to have the double mastectomies and all of the rest of the issues, and then long time chemo and all the rest, when they could have got on it early because they can't get in fast enough. People dying of blood clots, people dying in the waiting rooms. They're trying to end this. They've taken the top doctors and they've looked at all around the world the best Medicare they've got, and that's the system they're building. There's going to be a few pissed off people. Guess what though? Socialists, move out east. Because if you don't like it, don't make the people suffer, because there's a few of you with loud mouths. This whole corrupt care is a farce. It's a farce. Moving on, let's deal with the native end of it here. This is the actual letter. Cease and desist separatist threats. Okay, there's a thing called the Clarity Act. 1998. Was settled thanks to Quebec. They were the first ones to get in there and do it. Supreme Court ruled. You have no bloody choice. But you do have to sit at the table. By law, you have to. You can't lollygag. I'll be dealing on this in a future episode. I'm building a huge file on this whole secession, independence, especially with what's going on in Saskatchewan. A lot of people aren't aware that Mo isn't very far behind. He's been doing a lot of the same things that Danielle Smith has been doing. He's just a lot further behind, and it's because of the NDP. Now, let's just debunk this really quickly. This is in Alberta.
Indigenous perspective into the Alberta election. One candidate here in Edmonton Decor thinks the best path to reconciliation is an independent Alberta.
We're in a different time. Unfortunately, we are our backs against the wall. We've never been heard.
Virginia Bruno didn't expect to be fighting for Alberta's separation from Canada.
When separation first came to mind, I might add, I was heartbroken, as well as many other Albertans, I'm sure.
But when she read the platform, things like more control over resource management and the oil sands, an end to equalization payments, and the opportunity to renegotiate treaties and keep the funding in Alberta, spoke to her.
There's a platform for First Nations to get them self-governance, to make them have a say in the world's economy. Where does it start? First got the reserve.
She says watching her father drive back and forth to the city daily, protesting for First Nations education rights outside what was once the Department of Indian Affairs, gave her the inspiration to give back, and points to issues like water and housing as a failure in federal management.
And to ignore the fact that there are people getting sick from water, there are people living in homes that are unsafe. There are people that, struggle day to day.
Bruno does realize the Alberta Independence Party, largely seen as a fringe movement, likely won't take government. But she hopes it continues the conversation for a stronger Alberta, on and off reserve, whether she wins her seat or not. So even if you're not elected, you're still going to keep fighting?
I am. I'm going to have my way. Getting water and housing on reserves. I will have my way.
And she will have her way very soon. Now, we're just going to keep on just debunking all of this. This is Alice Ross. Now, he used to be a liberal. He's an old school liberal. The good liberals. He's not the new liberals. They had to fight the NDP and a few of the newer liberals that were slowly taking over the party in BC, Christie, as well as a few other hurdles, like, white people protesting against pipelines, that they were the ones that initiated the talks and asked them, hey, could you go through this route? So they got together with a whole bunch of different nations and they built the pipeline. And now their reservations, their nations are thriving. Brand new schools, hospitals, roads. They've actually they've taken from their elders and secured their language, and are now they have teachers, younger teachers with like the entirety of their culture, their language, their religion, safety netted, protected, and being taught in their schools. It's the rebirth, like a phoenix, of their culture. Listen to what he has to say about the NDP. And by the way, he, I believe, won a seat as a conservative in Poilievre's government. He loves Poilievre, loves his policies, and is really choked he never got in.
Poilievre mentioned the one and done.
Yeah.
Some people are concerned, but nothing is mentioned about the natives. I guess the natives, of course, would be, I take it, part of that one and done.
Yeah.
Thing, if I'm correct.
They have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the case law says it. The Haida Court case 2004 says that First Nations have to be consulted and accommodated. And for the most part, First Nations are bringing the major projects to the government's attention. So they want to support these projects. But I tell you what, the only political party, the only government in BC in the last 7 years that has broken that principle has been the NDP. They're the only ones. If you look up the court case of Doig River and Halfway River, they had to take the BC government to court because they took away the rights of Doig River and Halfway River without their consent. They're going to court. They're the only ones that have done that. And that was the last 20 years. And I tried to write an article about this, and I tried to talk about it, and nobody cared. So I'm still trying to stand up for rights and title in this day and age. And I never thought, since the Haida Court case of 2004, that a government could actually do this to another First Nation.
And they'll do it again in Alberta if you give them power. I'm glad the NDP got snuffed right out. They have no moral compass. None at all. Well, look at their voters. Look what their voters did to Canada. They jumped ship and went full fascist. These are the most uneducated. They do not care. All they care about is this silly moral, false morale. And what's crazy is they're voting against the things that they want. But they don't care. They're brainwashed. Turn the CBC, CTV, Globe and Mail. Yeah. Oh, hate, fear, hate, and division. Ooh, yeah, I'm the good guy. They're idiots. All of these clans, all of these tribes, all of these nations are sick of them. They're tired of it. And again, like I said, I'm building a video here. I got probably a 2-part series I'll end up doing on it. I'm going to expose a lot of this. What Ellis has done and his people, all of those nations along that route, they've saved everything about their culture. This is what the Independence Party, the APP, is trying to do. So you've got these two little nations. You guys can deal. Go ahead and deal. That's fine. All the other nations that aren't getting involved in this are sitting back going, wow, you guys are idiots. You guys are complete idiots. You're cutting yourself right out of it. Why would you do that? Look what the government's doing. They're trying to shut us down. No pipelines means they don't get any money. Thank God Ellis got his done before C-69 kicked in. Because they'd be struggling, starving, living in just filthy houses with no good drinking water, a complete social system where they just hand out checks, they just barely enough to survive. That's not a way to live. You take away the culture, you take away everything, and then you leave them out there. You take away all of their rights. Now you're taking away their guns. Get real. This media, these two nations should be just ashamed at themselves. And it's not just out west either. They're not big fans of them out east.
Hello, my friends. We have been waiting for this moment.
Yeah. Boo, boo, boo. That was the kickoff to the Indigenous Games. They despise this government. But media has got a bunch of honkies running around with signs. Ah! In the meantime, the clans are behind looking at them going, what are you guys doing? Get out of here. Brookfield. How many nations are suing them because of the dams? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The world we live in is just absolutely insane. This is a little bit further on in Danielle Smith's press conference. I love this. This is great. And this is truth to power. And what's funny is Mo and her speak the same language. It's just Mo doesn't get a lot of the airtime that she does. And Mo's a little quieter. He doesn't really come out of his house that often. He kind of stays in a little doghouse and he sticks his head out because he's Mo. He's kind of useless that way. At least he's trying. He is trying. He's just not aggressive enough. He's falling way behind. Whereas Danielle Smith and her party, they went at it head on. Get out of the way. We're going to make these changes. This is what we're going to do. Period, cut and dry. And they're doing it to try and save Canada because they know, if you watch the previous episode, she knows how fast the separatist party is growing. She knows that she's probably the last hope.
Sheila Gunn-Reid with Rebel News.
Premier, canola is a $44 billion industry. It supports 206,000 jobs, 40,000 Western farmers. Yet Prime Minister Carney, during his campaign and even now, has said nothing about the 100% retaliatory Chinese tariffs on canola thanks to the Liberals' green protectionist EV policies. So what is your government doing to ensure the canola tariffs are treated with the same urgency by the feds as the auto and steel sector one?
Well, I can tell you that all of the Western premiers who have a large canola industry in their provinces, and that is regardless of political stripe, have raised it directly with the Prime Minister. It seems like it's a bit of a phony war. We've got a 100% tax on EV vehicles from China that no one's buying in order to protect an EV industry in Ontario that doesn't exist. And in return, we are seeing punishment on pork and canola in our Western provinces, which are products people do want. So I think the Chinese have been very targeted and direct in how they're trying to split our country up. And I think we need to revisit that. We obviously are going to have to find new markets for our products, but let's at least engage in proportionate responses rather than having a knee-jerk reaction that is only going to hurt our industries further. And that has been conveyed by myself as well as other premiers directly to the Prime Minister.
The Bloc leader, who will hold some power and influence over Carney's minority cabinet, has just said that there is no future for oil and gas in Quebec or anywhere for that matter. Carney has also said he would allow a Quebec veto over pipelines. So how does Alberta then respond if no pipelines east is the deal that helps Carney keep his government from falling?
Well, I would hope that's not the case. The Canadian people did not vote for fringe voices like the Bloc Québécois or fringe voices like the Green Party or fringe voices like the NDP to control the agenda for the next while here. What Albertans and Canadians voted for was for Canada to become an economic superpower. And that means also an energy superpower. And that is what I would fully expect Mark Carney to do. I hope that he's able to continue forward with an agenda that perhaps even the Conservative opposition would support him in. That's what I think the message of the election is. And I would surely hope that he's not listening to fringe voices from a party that is solely committed to breaking this country up.
Thank you. We'll go on to our next question. Operator, could you put through the next caller, please?
Jamie Sarkonak with National Post.
Hi there. I'm just wondering what parts of the final regulations fell short in terms of, in your view? Because in the first draft regulations that were put out, Alberta responded. There were issues with cogeneration units. There were issues with how emergencies would be dealt with. The feds, in their final version, they say they updated the regulations to account for those criticisms. But obviously this isn't meeting what you guys are asking for. So I'm just wondering specifically, what did the feds try to give you and how did it fall short?
Well, it's not what they're trying to give us. I look at the outcome. I look at what are the projects that are being put forward to the electric system operator and the Alberta Utilities Commission for approval. And we have 0 large-scale natural gas plants being proposed. That tells me something about the level of uncertainty that natural gas plants have. Because remember, this is written as criminal violation, this if you do not meet the target by 2035. So what CEO is going to, by 2035, building with today's technology, be able to guarantee a 95% abatement on their CO2 within 10 years with technology that doesn't exist, on risk of going to jail? And I'm going to tell you there are zero. And so that is the nature of the problem that we have. When natural gas plants get built on today's technology, they have about a 25-year time horizon in order that they don't have stranded assets. And so that's why we have asked the federal government to align around emissions reduction policy that's reasonable around 2050. That's what the rest of the world is committing to. China's committing to 2060. India's committing to 2070. China and India are both bringing on coal plants at a rate that far exceeds anything that we produce in Canada. And so why would we punish our industry? Why would we risk blackouts? Why would we risk grid instability for an unachievable target? Why not work with us to try to find best available technology without these punitive measures? And I can turn it over to my Minister of Affordability Utilities, and he can.
And she's absolutely correct. Now, I don't know if you have heard what happened in Europe.
So let's go to Europe, or stay in Europe rather, where Spain has just experienced the biggest blackout in European history. It didn't just affect tens of millions of people in Spain, but also people in Portugal and France. When the power went off, flights were grounded, trains just stopped mid-track. Traffic was gridlocked because traffic lights stopped working. Mobile phone networks didn't work. There were 286 rescues of people in elevators. Just absolute chaos and pandemonium. Now, at first, people thought maybe this is a cyber attack. There's a great Netflix series on at the moment called 0 Day, starring Robert De Niro, that depicts a cyber attack that shuts down New York City's electricity grid. But experts are saying, no, it wasn't a cyber attack. It was actually a result of Spain's commitment to net zero. On the day of the blackout, 64% of their power was coming from renewables, 53% solar, 11% wind. And according to experts, the problem with renewable power is it's unstable, and that instability is likely to collapse the grid. They're saying that.
Now, this was huge. And I had mentioned this, I believe it was yesterday or the day before on an episode. Actually, it might have been 4 days ago. They've been having these weird blackouts, these intermittent. Certain areas, people's food getting spoiled, hospitals being shut down. Can you imagine having somebody cut open? And the media is trying to cover it up. They won't say what the death toll is. In fact, the fact that he found a number of 269, that's why I picked this clip. He's the only one who actually said how many people were rescued out of elevators. This was over 50 million people. Black. From space, you could see it clear as day.
The first members of Saskatchewan's new Marshal Service took...
Not that one. My bad. Oh, I might have cut that clip out. This one. No, that's not it. I guess I cut it out. Anyways, there's another clip that I was going to show where it actually, there's two people talking, and they're talking about Canada. And they're saying how crazy Canada is. These people are insane. The fact that they re-elected Mark Carney is even crazier. But the fact that this has been going on, why would you, in a place that's so cold and so hot, we have both extremes, one right to the other, why would you do that? They're saying that the food loss alone could pay the heating bills. In all, like the heating, now they get mild winters where the power went out, so yeah, the numbers would be a little obviously less than what it is here, but could have paid the heating bills for all the people out of power for the winter. The cost of food, the waste, think about that. And the debt it took them to get there, that they'll never pay off. They'll never pay it off, while all the billionaires who own the carbon credit companies, Brookfield, Carney, are making huge dividends. This whole thing is a farce. A complete farce. Now, everybody remembers how Carney said he had to make sure he had the media on his side. So they were going to put in legislation forever to keep the propaganda machine going, because there's
the campaign promise to give Canada's public broadcaster more money came with a jab at Mark Carney's biggest opponent and played to the bigger moment.
Canada's identity and institutions are under attack by foreign interference,
says the man who refused to rebuke Paul Cheng, the MP who told his constituents to kidnap the Conservative opponent, take him to the Chinese consulate so he could be slipped out of the country and offed. He never did. He backed him up the whole way. Oh, no, he's a good candidate. That candidate ended up stepping down 10 minutes after the police posted that they were actually investigating what was going on. Still no charges. I'll keep you posted, but there better be charges against this man. Because what Paul Cheng did, that is, wow. If anybody else said that, cops would be at your door right now. You'd be in jail. But politicians, especially Liberals, they're protected.
and instead of defending him, Pierre Poilievre is following President Trump's lead and taking aim at our institutions like CBC, Radio-Canada.
Hey, elbows out.
Now, they're so needed. They are so needed that the first interview he does is with the BBC.
To Donald Trump down south.
He just got elected as Prime Minister. Where's the first place he goes to do an interview? The BBC. British television.
It will be the same message that I've given him directly and I've been saying publicly, which is that...
yeah, I don't want to even hear anymore. Garbage. Unbelievable. You can't make this stuff up. But you have to remember, BBC is Britain's state-funded media. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I got a couple big ones I'm working on here. Been doing a lot of reading on legislation and stuff that's been passed in Saskatchewan. A lot of things I wasn't even aware of, to be honest. And believe it or not, like I said, Mo's trying. He's just a little kitty cat, though, compared to the lioness. What is Danielle Smith? Until next time, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. You've been watching Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm Alias Tagay. Stay informed.